How far must human selfishness and a slavish devotion to our own misguided principles go before we realise the inherent errors in our opinions and realise that everyone calling us wrong is in the right? Fellow YouTuber and entertainer Mitch recently released a video with the ever so cleverly endearing title Abortion. In the video itself, he discussed two ideas in a poorly transitioned way. He discussed his opinions on abortion, and he discussed his opinions on a religion. Both which I disagreed with, however I'm going to be focusing solely on his points on abortion. Mitch's views are no surprise to me. He's mentioned them a year ago and has mentioned them on his older channels. Mitch has very anti-scientific, sadistic, sexist, insensitive, inconsiderate, and overall poorly thought out opinions on the subject of abortion. Something demonstrated in his recent video on the subject. The only instance Mitch is okay with abortion is under the condition that if the mother were to die during pregnancy. If the doctors medically prove that having the child would result in the death of the mother. However, any other instance he views as ironically unethical. To get a better understanding as to why I disagree with Mitch, I'll go by my accusations of his opinions one by one. His opinions on abortion are anti-scientific. This isn't even up for interpretation because it's been proven by biologists as well as neurologists that human life does not begin at conception and takes around 6 months for the typical human baby's brain to really start forming. To behave as if this is a subjective notion is speaking from the mind of ignorance. To even apply this way of thinking after biologists and neurologists have given this information to the public and showed proof to such and then negate it is pure ignorance. This isn't an argument on opinion. This is you arguing subjectivity against objective fact, and that's ignorant. You're giving a claim that you never Googled beforehand despite having the resources to do so. It's such a waste of time to have the access to Google and then enable yourself to go off assumptions or your gut feeling before filming. Now, this doesn't only apply to Mitch here. Most vloggers enable this unhealthy way of thinking that it's okay to say something if your gut feeling says you're right. If you're gonna make a video, make it right. Make sure it's at the best of your ability and for the love of God, proof check. Your views on abortion are sadistic. Well, this is a no-brainer. You believe that if a woman gets raped, it must have happened for some reason, because you think that if she gets pregnant, the child must be born to fulfill his purpose in life so he can make an impact. You think that a child should be born regardless of the mother's opinion against keeping the child. You also believe that if a child has a disease which will cause almost immediate death, that you shouldn't abort it. You also believe that the child should be kept if both parents are careless and living in poverty-stricken homes. It should be clear to anyone why using these arguments as a way against having an abortion doesn't work emotionally, nor does it work logically. I'm going to refute this by using what Mitch had left out. Common sense. First off, you think it's not okay for a woman to abort their child because the child was a product of rape. Let me ask you this, Mitch. What is one of the most common after effects of women and even men being raped? Most are going to be traumatized, and even the ones that don't are a very rare exception. Being violated sexually in such a way isn't something anyone should have to endure through their lifetime, nor is it something enjoyable. It did happen for a reason, but not for a pleasant reason. The reason rape occurs is due to mentally disturbed people with an uncontrollable desire to harm others for their own personal gain. Sometimes alcohol or mind-altering substances can change someone's way of behaving and cause someone to rape someone when they are clearly out of their mind. The point is, they did a horrible action and it shouldn't be treated as a mistake that goes without persecution. Just like how drunk driving is something that shouldn't be treated without persecution. The action is disgraceful and is usually going to result in the victim being traumatized beyond belief. The chances are the person didn't plan to get raped by any means, so them getting a child without their say shouldn't have to happen because the child is unplanned and unwanted, and the only thing the child is going to do is be a constant reminder of her trauma. Why keep something that is likely going to grow up miserable due to the father being a rapist? Even worse, the person that raped their mother. The mother is going to be miserable, the child is also going to be miserable, So your idea is only going to cause two people, one brought into the world by your poorly thought out belief, to be miserable as fuck. It's just a disaster which will most likely rarely be successful. And even if it did work out in those rare instances, that still wouldn't prove that abortion should be illegal. Because it's safe to say that in most instances, people won't want the kid. An unhappy parent is a parent who will not be looking out for the well-being of their kid, and isn't that what you want? The child to grow up a good life? To make an impact? Your own logic just makes no sense. Your intentions are for the child, yet your whole ideology of what's right for the child would only harm the child. Your reasoning just fails, Mitch. You also said how you don't care for the rights of women and that their objections are not important. Now this ties into your beliefs on abortion being sexist, so let's kill two birds with one stone by using, yet again, common sense. In both of your videos towards abortion, you debunked the claim of focusing on the woman's choice by claiming how the man should have a say in the situation as well. I don't understand how this means that abortion should be illegal when it's so obvious we could implement a strict legal definition that the man needs to consent as well. But the point itself is pretty fair. The fact that women can go out and abort their child without the man's say and society not considering the men's right in this instance is pretty fucked up. But you know what else is fucked up? You doing exactly what you're against. If you care for the rights of the men in this instance, then I'm sure you'd be in favour of the rights of the women. Oh wait, you aren't. And what is someone who favours one gender over the other? A sexist. You view the opinions of males to be far more important, that you claim it as an objection for people having an abortion, yet dismiss the rights of the women. This is hypocritical and sexist. You also believe that if a woman has a child yet has a birth defect, a kidney disease being your example, that it should still stay alive anyways. Now this is just disgusting. Your reason doesn't even make sense. You don't know what it's capable of when it's alive. Well, the chances are, if a baby is born with a fatal disease that will kill them in less than 2 weeks, it won't really fulfill much in life, and most likely it will just live a life of suffering. And the fact that you would still condone the child to stay alive under these circumstances, to be born to suffer for days for no reason other than your poorly thought out constructed opinion is just sadistic. Along with the idea that even if the parents don't care and don't want the kids due to the fact that they don't have the appropriate finances to look after the kid for 18 years or even longer in some cases, is also a sadistic reason. And it's the final nail in the coffin that proves your views are sadistic. The reason people refuse to have children under these circumstances is because, unlike you, they actually try to use common sense when focusing on the issue of abortion. Having a child isn't the case of what they can bring to the world. Parents don't think on possibilities, they think of being a good parent. A good parent cares for their child and doesn't want to raise one who is in constant agony or living a shit life. This is why most parents discuss whether they can finance having a kid. This is why planned pregnancies exist. People need to know if they can afford a kid and raise it properly. This is usually why parents look at their finances and discuss issues like this with their partner. If they aren't living in good conditions, chances are the child is going to live a miserable life. Your only excuse for keeping them alive is for them to serve their purpose, and that not every purpose is a positive one. Yet you fail to put forth any supporting evidence to this claim. Purpose is subjective. What gives life purpose to you might make someone else want to blow their brains out. So purpose is really not a fair standard in the place of regards to abortion, because this is a subjective notion that you're forcing upon us. Something you also claim to be against. Context matters, especially when discussing purpose. However, in both of your videos, you don't really provide any context to your claims. This also means that your views are insensitive, especially to what you've said about the women in regards to this. The fact that you completely fail to look at the aspects of the women who have suffered from rape and how they're mentally unstable. If someone is barely stable to look after themselves, what makes you think that they should keep having a kid? Your views are insensitive not only to the kid who you advocate for his suffering, you also fail to show any consideration of the woman's feelings. So I've already proven you to be what I've accused you of being: anti-scientific, sadistic, sexist, insensitive, and inconsiderate. So now let's go to the final straw: hypocrisy. Mitch, you've said it so much that you're a misanthrope, even taking pride in this ridiculous notion. Well, a misanthrope has no hope in their fellow man, and thinks it's already doomed. In fact, most, if not all misanthropes, take pride in fucking with people, and assisting their decline in the fellow man. Misanthropes are admittedly malicious, and this is why being a misanthrope is something I never recommend, because the idea is something which usually leads into hypocrisy. Why would a misanthrope have this much hope in a child's development? Hope in your fellow man? This just doesn't make any sense. You've also made countless videos where your target has been people who go against marijuana. You believe that those who think the idea of making weed illegal are buying into a bad idea, that banning stuff like this has never worked out before due to the black market it ends up creating. Yet for some reason you've never acknowledged that women can perform abortions by themselves. By preventing these women from having one is only causing mental, and in this instance physical harm on the woman that shouldn't even occur. This is causing an unnecessary black market that doesn't work. It's just as successful as the ban on alcohol. By banning abortion, this could cause permanent damage on one's genitalia, all because someone out there has a different moral view. And if you set aside this hypocrisy and sadistic view, you're still left with misinformation, and one point I have yet to discuss: the misinformation of the worth of a fetus. Mitch claims that this is far different than some sperm because it has the potential to grow up and is far more of a human. This is not an ethical reason to keep a child. This is nothing more than a misinformed emotional appeal. What does a fetus and a sperm cell have in common? Both of them are nothing more than a bunch of cells that have the potential to be human. However, what is the overall issue in killing some cells which aren't even as human or have reached human life? They haven't reached that level yet, and they are just as human as sperm, so it's okay to kill it off. It's far better than enabling the children to grow up awful lives and growing rates of poor parents. This is more than just the opinions of a misinformed sadistic asshole. These opinions are growing because people these days are too busy in a fantasy world wanting to cater to an opinion which will make them feel the happiest. The idea of a potential life being murdered upsets some people, so they chose to ignore scientific facts and enable a lack of research. This behaviour should be called out as soon as it's seen, never catered to. Mitch is a part of the problem. The problem of enabling bad thinking patterns. Mitch is a fucking idiot. Anyone who would condone such a poorly thought out, sadistic view on the subject of abortion is a moron. Anyone who would get behind Mitch after he said something so sexist, cruel and disgusting can go fuck themselves. Mitch is an asshole for thinking rape happens for a reason. Mitch is also a terrible arguer. In this world, we should favour facts over feelings. Do what Mitch and the pro-life advocates ignore doing. Mitch says he advocates dialogue and discussion on his videos towards abortion, so long as the opinion is civil. Yet Mitch is someone who is prone of lacking civility. Mitch mocks his opponents and at times just says, "Cool story, bro." Like the inner 12-year-old Mitch cries out so elegantly. Mitch has videos on his channel being far from civil, where he goes after a tangent such a blunt way, yet refuses others to do the same back. Basically, he can give it out but not take it. He's a pussy, basically. And this way of thinking that you can dismiss criticism based on the presentation rather than the points is just stupid. Just because a statement was poorly worded doesn't make it wrong. Just because the presentation hurts your feelings doesn't make it wrong. It may make the person a bad arguer, but certainly not incorrect. The reason this subject matter and Mitch's opinions irritate and disgust me so much is because his view on the world is actually being applied in day-to-day life. People with actual authority that actually allow misinformation and an unhealthy way for the future is something I highly object to. The fact an authority figure can be as factually flawed as a teenager like Mitch. Just goes to show today's standards in politicians. This misinformation needs to end now. Don't tolerate this way of thinking. Going on feelings, being anti-scientific, etc. is wrong and a poor mindset. Don't be a moron like Mitch and fucking Google that shit.